Hello everybody and welcome to Tuesday night's event in the calendar for the Northumberland Dark Sky Festival 2021. We are going to talk about astrotourism tonight in a bit more detail, and we're going to be talking to noted international author of the Lonely Planet Guide to Dark Skies, Valerie Stimac, and once again we'll have Duncan Wise from the Northumberland National Park Authority talking to us about tourism in the region. And we've got lots of pictures and things to show you tonight, and Valerie has kindly offered to give one of her signed free books to somebody in the chat, so we'll do that maybe towards the end of the stream. As per usual, I, Roy Alexander from Batlers Observatory, will do a little 5-minute intro into what we're all about, what the festival entails. So it'll just take about 3 or 4 slides. I am going to share my screen now to do that with you. And then Valerie will talk about her experiences and hopes and dreams around the world, globe-trotting stargazer, and then we'll have Duncan after that. So if this works, bear with, click, there we go. So welcome to the Northumberland Dark Sky Festival. We are pretty much slap bang in the middle of it now, and as I said before, every night this week we are doing it all online this year because of the pandemic. Some great actual opportunities there with that, because I mean, look, here we are. Valerie has joined us from California, and I'm pretty sure we probably wouldn't be able to afford to fly her over and have her here in person, but maybe one day when all this is over, we can do stuff like that. So there are some pros and cons for doing all this online stuff, but ideally we do want you to join us in the future, hopefully the near future, under our wonderful pristine dark skies. Obviously, look at that picture there. We all know and love the Sycamore Gap, the Robin Hood tree. Thank you to Mark McNeil for letting us use that picture. So the festival is a collaboration between the 4 observatories in Northumberland. The very well-known Kielder Observatory, that's a picture by Dan Monk there. So much stuff going on in that. You've got the galaxy there arching across the Kielder Observatory. We have the Stonehof Astronomy Pavilion and the Stonehof Observatory, which was made, I think, last year, put together by Liam, who also happens to work at Kielder. And that's a lovely place, actually, very remote and very dark. We have the Twice Brood Observatory, which came online last year, run and operated by Will Chung. And a fantastic view of the Milky Way and the Andromeda Galaxy there from the roof of his observatory, which is actually right next door to the Sill Discovery Centre, which is one of the sites that we've done stargazing from before with Duncan and his team. Finally, the observatory I helped design and build, the Batlers Observatory in Wark, and that's been up and running for 5 or 6 years now. And that's a wonderful picture there by one of our astronomers, Dr. Mark Kitchen. So, you know, I just can't wait for lockdown to finish and you can all come and visit us. It's going to be fantastic. I can see we've got almost 150 people now in the chat, and there will be an opportunity now to ask Valerie and Duncan lots of questions. Valerie in particular about kind of her travels around the world, dark sky tourism, and you know, where to go, you know, where's expensive, where's cheap, favorite places, things like that. And with Duncan, we're hoping that people will ask questions about, you know, favorite locations within Northumberland. And if any of you out there are thinking of running an astrotourism business, Duncan is the person to fire those questions out, and I might be able to help you too. So please be nice in your comments there. And obviously the final plug for me before we move on to Valerie is the International Dark Sky Association, and we are supporting them all week. I'm an IDA delegate. Duncan works with the IDA very, very closely, and obviously we massively support their mission, which is written up there in black and white for you. We basically wanting to preserve those dark skies. You can join. There's a number of different ways you can join. You can donate, you can contribute. Tons of research and news on their website about dark skies and light pollution. So get on there, get stuck in, just Google it and you'll be able to easily find your way onto their website. So that's me. That's my little introduction. Thank you. Bear with me. If you've been with us every single night, then you probably know that off by heart by now, that particular PowerPoint. I'm going to mute and turn my video off, and I'm going to hand you now over to our guest from California, Valerie Stimac.
Thank you so much. I am delighted to be here. Good evening, everyone. It is around midday here in California, so you'll have to forgive me. There's a lot of daylight shining in. It's not yet the window for going out stargazing tonight, but I will say I'm actually hoping to go stargazing this evening. We've got a clear day here, so hopefully I hear it's not as clear over where many of you are, but hopefully you'll get some clear skies soon, because as we'll discuss today, it is still, stargazing is a great activity to be participating in, obviously not at group festivals or star parties, but you can certainly enjoy the night sky despite the ongoing pandemic. Give me one moment, please, to switch to my slides. Okay, and hopefully you can see me, or you can see my slides and you can see me maybe in the upper corner. If not, I'm going to assume you can see me, but if not, please jump in and let us know. So this evening, I'd like to talk about the power of astrotourism to protect the night sky. And what I really like about this topic is that it ties in very closely with the International Dark Sky Association's mission as well. I believe that all of our interest in the night sky gives us an opportunity to preserve that resource. There's certainly, as we'll discuss, there's certainly costs and benefits to tourism of any kind, but we have the unique opportunity to enjoy the night sky and protect it at the same time. So to introduce myself very briefly, my background is actually in psychology and business. I, like many of my generation, have collected a wide variety of academic experiences, but I started travel writing in 2013. In 2017, I launched my website, Space Tourism Guide, and then in 2019, I was fortunate to be invited as the sole author of a book by Lonely Planet, published by Lonely Planet, called Dark Skies, A Practical Guide to Astrotourism. And you can see me there with it. So I'll take this opportunity to introduce the little giveaway that Roy mentioned. I will send one of you a signed copy of Dark Skies, personalized signed. To enter to win this copy, all I'd like you to do is, throughout the course of the talk today, you've got until the very end, at some point, put into the chat your #1 dark sky or astrotourism destination that you would like to visit someday. I know you've been some amazing places, many of us have, but I want to hear where you want to go next. I always find that interesting. Where are the trends, the travel trends of where we want to go stargazing, or where we want to see the aurora or chase eclipses or anything like that. So that's me. You have a chance to enter until the end of the talk. Feel free to comment at any time. And then at the end, after the chat, I will go through all of the entries, put everyone in a hat, draw one person out, get in touch via YouTube chat, try and get your contact info and send you a signed copy. So let's start by talking about astrotourism in case you're not familiar with this term. My guess is that many of you are, or you are at least familiar with the activity, even if you have never called it astrotourism. So I define astrotourism, and we're increasingly see this definition used widespread, as experiencing the night sky through tourism. So this typically has been aurora chasing, eclipse chasing, going to see rocket launches. I believe that counts. It's something that's often overlooked, but it's an incredible experience. And if you've ever done it, you know that it should certainly count in this sort of night sky and space tourism. And then stargazing, which we all do frequently, and we wish we were all doing in Northumberland right now. And within stargazing, I also include meteor showers. So obviously the Perseids, the Geminids, some of those big meteor showers are well worth planning an overnight getaway from your backyard or your urban area, and that should count. Visiting observatories, whether that's by day or by night. So you'll see some photos. And then astronomy clubs and dark sky festivals, of course, they provide a great tourism opportunity. So just some photos in case any of these don't sound familiar, but aurora chasing, eclipse chasing, rocket launches. This was the Orion EFT-1 launch I was fortunate to see in December of 2014, I believe. Can't believe it's been that long. Incredible experience. And then observatory. So this is the Royal Observatory in Greenwich. Visited it during the day because it's not a particularly active research site anymore, but I count that as astrotourism. So anything to do with science, space science, the night sky, I count all of that within astrotourism. Let's talk about astrotourism around the world, because this trend has been on the rise. In fact, yesterday I was reviewing a book for another author about the business of astrotourism. So we're starting to see the travel industry take note of this trend and try and get more involved, which I think is a really good opportunity for us to be conscientious in how we design tourism. So we know that over-tourism has a negative impact on many destinations. We don't want that. But we're seeing astrotourism pop up all over the world, which is a great opportunity. You don't have to necessarily travel very far anymore to have an astrotourism experience. So obviously Northumberland, these are some screenshots from different websites that are dedicated to dark sky tourism or astrotourism in different parts of the world. The next one is Utah. So many of you have probably been or dreamed of visiting Utah. It has incredible night skies. It's one of the best places in the world to go stargazing. And they currently hold the lead in the ongoing race for who has the most IDA certified dark sky places. They're currently #1. They just overtook Arizona about 2 months ago. This one is from Wales. So I had grabbed the screenshot a little while ago that they have built out some pages on their site. Western Australia has been pushing their Astrotourism trail, sort of a multi-step, multi-day experience. And then Michigan. So it's not just, within the US, the Southwest is obviously a great stargazing destination, lots of really nice dark skies, but other parts of the US as well. So you don't necessarily have to come all the way out west near me. You can still get great night skies, even if you only visit East or Midwest part of the US. So as I mentioned, I believe astrotourism is a safe activity in the COVID world. And that's a unique opportunity. I think we've seen more interest in the night sky continuing to grow. This particular branch of tourism is growing, even as tourism globally has been constricted by the pandemic. While many star parties and dark sky festivals have been canceled or have gone virtual, stargazing as an activity works very, very naturally with physical and social distancing. And I use a couple different terms because I know we're all hearing different messaging about what we call these different new activities and new parts of our lives. But what I like about stargazing as an activity is that it's meant to get you away from other people. The idea is to leave urban areas that are more densely populated, leave light pollution, get away from other people, get some distance so that you can enjoy the night sky. And that is a great fit for the kind of safety precautions we're all being advised to do. It can also be done from lockdown in our backyards or outdoor green spaces, or even national parks if you are able to visit those with your current rules, which I know for many of you in the UK, your lockdowns are even more strict than ours have been in the US. We won't go too deep into that, but hopefully you can at least create a wish list of places you'll visit someday when those lockdowns are lifted. Of course, stargazing from your backyard or from urban green spaces is affected by light pollution, but it still can be done. So let's talk about how astrotourism, what the benefits are, because whenever we talk about tourism, we do want to keep in mind that it can have a negative effect. But I believe that astrotourism on the whole has a much greater positive impact, both protecting the night sky and, as we'll see, on the destinations that people go visit. So can astrotourism protect the night? Yes. It teaches us to appreciate the night sky. There's nothing quite like going out and seeing the Milky Way stretched across the sky. This is actually my personal mission in all of the work I do related to dark sky tourism and space tourism education. I believe the Milky Way has a unique impact on our ability to put in perspective our place in our little world that we live on, our pale blue dot, and also in our universe. And it's a great opportunity for us to realize how precious our planet is, how unique our perspective of the night sky is, and how precious that resource is. And many of us come home from those incredible night sky experiences as ambassadors. Going to a dark sky location, especially one that's been certified by the International Dark Sky Association, also allows us to see how responsible lighting can be implemented. So one of the main things that IDA works with destinations is to help them make sure their lighting plans are compliant to reduce light pollution. I'm sure you've heard about this if you've attended any other talks this week. But many people worry that less light means that we are less safe. And there's a lot of great research that's been done both in psychology and in economics and business, which is where you start to see all of my interests come together, that less light does not make us less safe. It's an interesting little psychological trick, but it's just not the case that having something less well lit makes it perceptually less safe, or actually less safe, meaning there's not necessarily more crime committed in places with responsible lighting than with overlighting. So when we go out and experience the night sky with responsible lighting that does do the proper hooding and doesn't spew a bunch of light up into the night sky, we come home and we can see how our homes and our communities can be adjusted in small ways to make them more effective at managing light pollution as well. So even if you go out into a dark sky experience and come home and just affect your own personal living space and reducing your light pollution, that's a start. And we can help reduce the impact globally if we all have a good night sky experience and then come home and make those changes. But can astrotourism actually help destinations? We hear headlines all the time about how tourism as a whole is bad. It overtaxes local economies. People visit, they trash locations, they aren't respectful of local cultures. And that can be very concerning as we talk about a new area of tourism, especially when that new area of tourism is going to have an impact on the local economies during the daytime. So it's not just that we go out somewhere at night, we leave and there's no impact. we know that traveling has an impact and we want to try and mitigate that. But I believe that astrotourism can help destinations. So when you spend money to visit a dark sky destination, your pounds or your other currency, dollars, whichever you use in your home country, wherever you're watching from, especially when you go to a dark sky experience, such as a festival or a star party, that money goes usually right back into those light pollution mitigation efforts. And while many star parties and dark sky festivals are free, you can still donate to support the organizations that make those happen. So when you go to an event, whenever we're all able to travel more freely and we can attend these kinds of events and we can gather together and celebrate the night sky, keep in mind that while you may not necessarily be paying to attend these events, there are ways to monetarily support the economy. And I believe I removed the slide with all the numbers because I just know that not everyone gets as excited about those tourism trend numbers as I do, but they've done some research here in the United States, and they've found that in some local economies, depending on the scope of the dark sky location and how many activities are available there, billions of dollars are available to these destinations. So it's not just billions of dollars pouring back into dark sky activities. Those billions of dollars from overnight stays at hotels and campgrounds and any restaurants and tours, all the tourism dollars support the entire economy, and that economy can then go and make sure that they continue their light pollution compliance. They can add new dark sky experiences because people are even more interested in them, and it creates this great cycle that promotes an activity we all love and enjoy. But we do want to mention that astrotourism can, of course, hurt. So as responsible astrotourists, we need to consider how our going to a destination to experience the night sky can have an impact. The primary concern we all have is light pollution, and it helps to educate yourself before and during your visits to make sure that when you go to a dark sky location, you don't contribute to light pollution. The best example I have is I visited an observatory near Joshua Tree National Park. It's right on the edge of Joshua Tree. And when you drove into the parking lot, they had a sign to turn your headlights on your vehicle off, which of course makes sense. But if you've never attended a observatory at night for a little star party, maybe you don't know to do that and you end up washing the whole area in light, and it can have a negative impact. And of course, we know that light pollution can affect local populations of animals and other species. Additionally, building out the infrastructure to support astrotourism can create light. So luckily, in locations that are already IDA certified, those new buildings will be built with compliant light pollution reducing fixtures and bulbs and so on. But if you have a new destination, it can be a balance between building the infrastructure to support tourists and not creating more light pollution that will end up affecting this natural resource everyone's coming to experience. So my main piece of advice here is to do your research in advance to understand what you'll be seeing, so you can appreciate the night sky above you and be an ambassador about what you've seen when you come home, or connect with your local astronomy groups and resources, such as through the Northumberland Dark Sky Festival, to get an appreciation of the night sky and understand how you can reduce your impact when you go visit, whether that's for an organized event when those are possible, or you're just going out on your own. I also wanted to share some tips for responsible astrotourists. I think the pandemic as a whole has given us a great opportunity to reconsider how we travel in this world. And I say that as someone whose basically whole livelihood was deeply and negatively impacted by the pandemic. But to me, it has been a great opportunity to step back and say, okay, we've reduced our carbon footprints. We've reduced daily flights around the world. We've become much more appreciative of the few chances that we have to travel. How can we carry that through to all aspects of tourism and retain that when we move forward into a more free travel economy in the future? So first of all, I advise just plan ahead. We used to live in a wonderful world where you could spur of the moment, book a trip and go places and not have to worry very much whether there would be infrastructure to support you or the experiences you wanted to have. But with limited in-person events and restrictions on travel that I personally believe will continue through 2021 and probably into 2022, especially internationally, a little planning will help you ensure you have a great experience and will ensure that you're safe and you're compliant with any local restrictions, whether you're traveling close to home or you are taking a much bigger trip. Obviously, we want to pay attention to moon phases. This is always my #1 tip for experiencing the night sky. Many of you, I'm sure, know that this is the first thing you check if you want to go out for a night. And then layering up is my #2 tip for very logistical, practical advice, because there's nothing more disappointing than going out on a great night, seeing the night sky and not staying as long as you want to because you get cold fingers and cold toes and cold head. In terms of safe tourism, when and where that is allowed, you can, even in your backyard or an urban green space, excuse me, you can create shelter from light. So you can use a vehicle, or you can bring out something with you to create shelter from any light that is around you. So you can create a little pocket or a little protected area where you can see up in the night sky. You always want to give your eyes time to adjust, and 20 minutes is generally a good rule. And then I always recommend having a star finder app so you can really appreciate what you're seeing. This is one that I know some people go back and forth on, but I'm always pulling out my phone, and the app that I use is called Night Sky. It's on iOS, and it has a red filter. So I can just kick the red filter on, and it doesn't affect my ability to look up at the stars or cause my eyes to lose their dark adjustment, but I can know what I'm seeing, because especially if you go from an urban area where you have limited star viewing because there's a lot of light pollution to an area where there's not much light pollution, there's so many stars, it's very easy to lose your points of reference on which constellations and which stars you recognize. And as I said earlier, being able to come home and tell people about your experience, being that dark sky ambassador in your family or your community, is how we inspire other people to go out and experience the night sky. And we all chip in a little to help reduce light pollution, because we know how valuable the night sky is as an experience. Additionally, astrotourism can be a family or pod. If you are in a pod, or you use that term, it's an experience you can have where everyone learns together about what's in the night sky and why we're protecting it and how to protect it. I often find that when I've gone to star events, star parties, night sky festivals, there's a family, and there's always one, usually a small child in the family, who loves the night sky. And I was that small child in my family. But by bringing the whole family together, you often discover that while no one else is enthusiastic as that first person who inspired the trip, everyone can appreciate the night sky. And lastly, you can support local astronomy groups and dark sky parks. So if they're having events, attending them or attending them virtually, you can donate, and then by word of mouth. So I hope you watching have been able to share one of the talks from this week with someone else who might be interested, whether they're attending this virtual event or they're going to hopefully attend a dark sky festival in the future when those are allowed. I wanted to end by talking about my top astrotourism destinations. And I think Roy might jump in at this point, not sure, I can chat through it, to give you some inspiration for entering this giveaway. So
I'm happy to jump in if you'd like me to.
Cool, yeah, sure.
Lots and lots of people have already, I don't know if you're looking at the YouTube chat, but lots of people have said their favorite destination is in fact Battlestead's Observatory. And
well, that should feel
no,
great.
I'm joking. Lots of people have said their best destination is Iceland, and places to see the aurora. I mean, Northumberland is getting a lot of good shout outs there, and we're making sure that people know that we have 4 observatories here. But yeah, people are joining in with that. So folks in the YouTube chat, keep it coming if you want to get a copy of Valerie's book for free. If you want to win a copy, she's giving one away to one of you. You need to type in the chat where your favorite dream dark sky destination would be.
Yep. I look forward to reading them. I get very excited, as you can tell. I didn't want to get too deep into the numbers and the business side of tourism, but I find it fascinating where people are interested in. Because of course, for me out here in California, our top aurora destination would be Alaska, but you're all a lot closer to Iceland. I haven't actually been to Iceland to see the aurora, but I've obviously seen pictures, and I can imagine that it is breathtaking and also breathtakingly cold. So that advice about wearing layers is always good for going out at night. Okay, so here's some inspiration for me. The first one I wanted to call out is New Zealand. So many of you, if you are a particularly interested future astrotourist, you may already have New Zealand on your radar. But what makes New Zealand really special, and we included it several different parts of the book, is how many different astrotourist experiences you can have there. So of course, there are incredible dark sky preserves, sanctuaries, reserves, parks all across both islands. It was, I believe, the home of the first dark sky sanctuary, which is the highest tier of IDA certification. So one of the most pristine dark sky locations in the world is in New Zealand. You can, of course, see the southern Milky Way, the Magellanic Clouds. If you've never seen those are incredible. They totally boggle your mind that there's this other view of the night sky that us in the Northern Hemisphere don't often get to see. You can see the aurora from New Zealand. So if you travel far enough south on the southern island and all the way down to the tip to Stewart Island, which is the English name of it's a new, I believe, dark sky sanctuary or dark sky reserve, you can see the aurora under the right conditions during the winter months. And then my favorite thing about New Zealand is that you can actually see a rocket launch from there. So Rocket Lab, which is an American company, does their launches from the Mahia Peninsula. I believe it's on the North Island. So it's the kind of destination for me personally where I just dream of going and spending about a month driving around and having all these different dark sky experiences. The next one I wanted to highlight is Jordan, the country of Jordan. So many people, yeah, are you there? I see you, Roy. I want to make sure I can hear you if you have any
sorry, I'd muted you. I was just nodding.
Okay.
I would love to do that.
Yes.
New Zealand, I'd love to do, see those clouds and so on.
Yeah. Yeah. So jumping on to Jordan, this is a great destination for those of you in the UK. It's far closer to you than it is to me, but I love the country of Jordan. I've been there before. And there are incredible dark sky experiences across Jordan. In particular, you can do this, it's called Petra by night. And in this particular photo, there is a very bright moon. So that's where the moon phases always come in handy. But I've seen photos of this location where there is no moon and you just have the candlelight on the red rocks and then the stars overhead. And it's incredible. But you can also go stargazing in Wadi Rum, which is a big desert ecosystem where there are bubble dome hotels you can stay in. And it's a common film location for a lot of sci-fi and outer space movies. Like there's been Star Wars film there, The Martian, et cetera. So that's a very fun one. And like many of you, part of the reason that I wanted to recognize Jordan is that like many of you, I had my travel plans changed in 2020, and I was actually going to be leading a tour to Jordan for astronomy focused experiences. So we were going to do a lecture with an Arabic astronomer about Arabic astronomy. We were going to do a bunch of stargazing events at different locations with different guides or on our own. And that was canceled, but I'm hoping to reschedule it. So if Jordan is on your list, you can always find me just, Googling my name usually pops up my many different projects. And we're hoping to reschedule that maybe for March of 2022. And I would love to have anyone who's listening now join me. You can even send me a little note and I'll see if I can knock the price down a little bit as a thank you for joining in. And then the third one is actually where I live. So here in California, most people know that most rockets in the United States launch from Florida and some from Virginia, not very many. And lately, a lot of people have been watching Texas because Elon Musk has been blowing stuff up there. But there's also a rocket launch facility in Central California called Vandenberg. It's an Air Force base. And I have tried to go see a rocket launch there and failed. It was for those of you who know rockets, it was scrubbed at T-2 seconds. So 2 seconds before liftoff, they scrubbed. We stood out there for hours to see nothing happen. But this photo is a great example of what it looks like. Obviously, this is a time lapse, so it doesn't look exactly like that. But I find rocket launches to be an incredible show of human ingenuity.
And of course, these days, they're commonplace, aren't they? It's ridiculous. I mean, the ease with which rockets take off and then various bits of them come back to Earth and land and get caught and then reused and so on.
Yeah.
We are, I think it's safe to say we're right now at the dawn of being genuinely a spacefaring species.
Yes. I love to think about, so this is, I'm a fan of all of the private investors that are building companies in space, but I love to think about Elon Musk's children. Yes, many of them, thinking that rocket launches are totally normal. Yeah. Like they see them so often that they're normal. I just love the idea that there's a generation where that's normal. For us and for my parents and their parents, rocket launches were an exceptional, unique experience. And that's how you get started. But we're launching so much now globally as a species that young kids now may grow up never realizing that rocket launches are not a very normal thing for us.
It's funny actually. So I've got a 5-year-old daughter. I mean, initially there, I thought you were talking about Elon Musk's own child or children. And I guess to some degree, you are. But also about all the children of that generation. I remember when my little girl Emma was about 2 years old, and I showed, or maybe a year and a half, and I showed her a rocket launch for the first time. She didn't kind of quite get it, but she, over the course of a couple of months, she did. Now she's like, "Do you want to come see a rocket launch?" No, play Minecraft.
Yeah, it's nothing. It's not that exciting.
Is there a bus coming down the street?
Yeah. I love the normalization of human access to space. Of course, we can not dive too deeply into there's environmental impacts and so on that we want to be very conscientious of as we scale up our launch as a species. But it's just if you've never seen a rocket launch and you have a bucket list, I would strongly recommend putting it on there. And I know it's hard to plan for, but it is chest vibrating. There's nothing like it on Earth. I mean, anybody, and people who live in Florida, if there's anyone watching, probably shaking their head saying, you know, they kind of are more used to it, right? If you're from Florida during the shuttle era, you were very used to launches happening with some frequency. But if you go for that first time, you never that's what everyone said when I went to my first launch. You never forget your first rocket launch. It's like this incredible.
I do miss the shuttle. I do miss the shuttle. What I miss about it really more than anything, I mean, I know it was really complicated and over expensive and it was problematic and all, you know, those poor people died of those two different tragedies. But what I really missed about it was the shuttle just flying back to Earth like an aeroplane, landing on the runway, and then the astronauts getting off it like they'd just been on a package holiday. Yeah. So I was like, yeah, we're back. I love it.
Yeah. And hopefully we'll see that come back. Maybe not with we'll see. We'll have to just see.
Maybe not in my lifetime, I think.
No, I think it will. I think you should be hopeful about that.
Cool.
To wrap this up, so this hopefully shows you, for everyone watching, to enter this contest, it does not have to be somewhere far from home. No. I'm hoping that you are inspired thinking about all the places around the world. You can go someday, but it could be somewhere close to home that you can drive to that inspires you, where you know there's, I mean, within the UK, Cornwall is still working on they're trying to get a spaceport. I've heard a lot of talk about Scotland's supposed to get a spaceport. So it may be within 20 years that there are rocket launches from the UK. And if there are, I hope to be there to see them.
That would be great, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Are you then, if you're finishing, have you finished off now? Have you got
any more? Yep.
All right, great. Well, thank you for sharing those destinations with us. Definitely very exotic and definitely some good record. They're going on my bucket list. So we're going to introduce Duncan shortly. So if we're going to get your PowerPoint ready, Duncan, and I think you have unmuted yourself. Where's your ideal? And I know you're going to have to say, like, legally you're obliged to say Northumberland, and then equally all the observatories. But if we assume that's your favourite place to be, where's your second favourite dream place for astronomy?
Well, I think I'd have to agree with many others in Iceland, because our colleague Will Chung, who is one of our partners with this festival, you know, he spends as often as he can flying over to Iceland just to see the aurora, and he's got it down to a fine art. And some of the images he's captured are just fantastic, you know. And I think he's become addicted to getting those flights over to Iceland. So I would love to go to Iceland, but I would also love to go to Namibia as well. A colleague of mine,
Larry went there. One of our Larry, he went there.
Astrotourism in Namibia is in a different league altogether, because out there you can actually hire observatories. If you have a group of you can actually hire a fully equipped observatory to use for the evening, as you would just perhaps hire a telescope maybe over here in the UK. So I think that's on a different level, and I think seeing dark skies over a desert location would be stunning. So I think that would be, compared to the fact that, you know, we tend to wrap ourselves up and in about multi-layers to go stargazing here in Northumberland, sort of -12. I like the idea of stargazing in a warm climate. But thank you very much indeed, Valerie. That was fascinating.
It was. Thank you, Valerie. I did that desert thing once in Egypt. I was there on a scuba diving holiday, and we took the quad bikes out. The Bedouin took us out on quad bikes, which we weren't allowed to go faster than 5 miles an hour, and that was very disappointing. So me and a friend of mine kept kind of accidentally dropping back a little bit and then having to catch up really quickly. But when we got out there, there was a big fire and a couple of lanterns. And we had our meal, and it was lovely. And then they put the lanterns out and kind of moved us a little bit away from the fire. And the sky was staggering. I mean, we'd gone a couple of miles out of Sharm el Sheikh, so you could still see that, but it was unbelievable. It was almost as good as Northumberland. Okay, so Valerie, if you want to kind of if you're not already doing it, interact in the YouTube chat and have a look at that and pick somebody out and so on. I'm going to again mute myself. I can see Duncan's getting his PowerPoint there, and take it away, Duncan Wise.
Thank you very much indeed. Well, that was fascinating from Valerie's presentation, and covered every aspect in terms of responsible tourism. As I say, we're talking about a natural quality that we are not wanting to take for granted, and the way that we enjoy this activity is something we also need to be aware of, and showing courtesy at night time, because this is an activity that you do normally at night, obviously. and you're normally going out into remote rural areas where people live and work, and us bumbling around noisily in the countryside at night doesn't always go down too well. So again, that's showing a bit of courtesy and taking precautions not to disturb local people, I think is really important. But let me introduce you to Northumberland International Dark Sky Park. As you can see, my job here is as Visitor Development and Tourism Officer, and my background is mostly in sort of tourism development, marketing, promoting Northumberland National Park as a destination for visitors. And I suppose traditionally we've tended to focus mostly on those kind of outdoor activities that you do during the daytime, like walking and cycling and visiting historic buildings and picturesque villages and the like, which we have in abundance. And I suppose dark skies didn't really come onto my radar, perhaps until probably about 10 years or so ago. And I would say that it was the International Year of Astronomy in 2009 that really made us look up, literally, and suddenly look at something that perhaps dominates the landscape that we spend so much time looking after and protecting, and not realizing that actually that sense of tranquility that many people enjoy in Northumberland National Park is very much closely associated with that intrinsic darkness that we have as well. And I'm just going to run you through a few slides just to introduce you to the Northumberland International Dark Sky Park and take you through some of the steps that we've taken since getting the designation in 2013, and then showing you some lovely images of some photos that have been taken, not by me, I wish I could, but by people who are much better used to using the equipment than I am. So as I say, where are we? Right, well, this is Northumberland. First of all, this is a satellite image of the UK, and it's zooming in basically on the border area between England and Scotland. You've got the Solway Firth down here. You've got the northeast coast here. This is the Northumberland Heritage Coast. You've got the North Pennines. You've got this sort of natural ridge of hills running down the back of the UK. But then here you've got sort of Carlisle, this area of brightness here. And this is a satellite image that obviously has captured the levels of light pollution. The darkest areas are obviously the areas where there's very little light pollution, and the brightest areas, colored in orange and red and yellow, is where most of the light pollution comes from. And so down here in the northeast of the national park, you've got North Newcastle, Tyne and Wear, Sunderland, and again this giant conurbation that's kind of merged into one enormous area of light emitting density. And then further north, right up into, you've got Edinburgh up here, and then Glasgow, and again those two large conurbations are beginning to join together. And in between, you've got this wonderful black velvet collar that sort of stretches from coast to coast. And one of the reasons why it's so dark is the fact that you don't have any sizable towns or cities dominating this region. You've got Carlisle down here, you've got Newcastle over here, but in between, it's mostly made up of open country and a few small towns and villages. And one of the reasons why this area is so unpopulated, you have to go back maybe 700 years or so, because this was a militarized zone, say back in the 13th, 14th, 15th, and 16th centuries. This was an area of turbulence, of conflict, of Anglo-Scottish wars. You had English kings trying to take over parts of southern Scotland. You had Scottish kings fighting back and trying to take over parts of northern England. And this militarized zone was populated by warlords and families that basically just did a very good job of just surviving. These were the border reavers. These were the reaving families that survived by stealing from one another. They literally would go on nighttime raids and steal cattle and sheep and drag them back to where they lived. And then they might then be followed by the person that had been, bereaved or stolen from. And this hot rod would sort of go and sort of take back the stuff that had been stolen. So This was a turbulent area. This was not a place where you could really settle or build anything substantial. That wasn't going to be burnt down to the ground. So we have this borderland area and this legacy of darkness, which is something now that we don't want to take for granted. And Galloway Forest was the very first dark sky park that was identified by the International Dark Sky Association. This area here is Northumberland National Park. This is a rather strange boundary here. And then this area to the left of it is the Kielder Water and Forest Park. Now, many people think that Kielder is part of the national park. It isn't. It's right adjacent to it. But we work very closely together. Obviously, we have very similar landscapes. And so we work collaboratively together. So again, very, very special area. You've got the Lake District down here, North Pennines here. Both these areas are showing a lot of interest in maybe securing dark sky status in the future. And maybe one day we might see the whole of this area, one contiguous area, covering the border area being designated a protected dark sky. So this is the actual dark sky park showing the boundary. There's the national park boundary down here. You've also got Hadrian's Wall that runs along the south here. This is the famous monument that goes from coast to coast. This is a picture of it down here in the bottom right-hand corner. And it's got a very distinctive landscape. It softens a little bit as you go up into the North Tyne area. And this is around the Kielder Reservoir. And the Kielder Observatory, which we'll be talking to you about, is located just about there. And then as you go further north, this is the Otterburn training area, a wild open piece of countryside dominated by open hills and a little bit of woodland. And then you've got the Cheviot Hills in the north that stretch right across into Scotland, going over the boundary. And it's a very, again, very open, unpopulated part of the world. So in an area of, over 1,000 square kilometers, we have less than 2,000 people living in this area. So that's why it's so dark. And Northumberland, of all the counties in England, has the most pristine dark skies. 72% of our skies are described as pristine. So it's something we want to protect. And as I say, being a dark sky park, we are obligated now to look at ways to conserve the darkness, as well as finding places and engaging people to come and enjoy it as well. So as I say, when we became a dark sky park, again, it was a collaboration between ourselves and Kielder Water and Forest Park. We were taken by surprise by the media coverage. It suddenly put this giant spotlight onto Northumberland globally. And we estimate that probably the value of the media that was generated was around about £1 million. It certainly did some wonderful things straight away. Kielder Observatory, that had been built a few years beforehand, suddenly saw a surge in bookings. We saw other protected landscapes in the area increase their interest in their dark skies and running events themselves. And also the tourism organization, the destination management organization for Northumberland, realized that they had a new quality, a new special quality that they could engage visitors about. And the best thing about, obviously, dark skies is the fact that the best time to come and view them is during the autumn and winter months, which is traditionally a very quiet time for the tourism sector here in Northumberland. The weather is quite changeable, and most of the tourism activity has traditionally taken place between Easter and October. Well, now you had an activity that could be taking place during the autumn and winter. Those were the best months. That's when the evenings come in early. And so you can take your kids out and your family out to see the night sky from about tea time onwards. So it's been a bit of a game changer for us. So I'm going to run through a few basic things that you need to ensure that you can actually provide an amazing stargazing experience. And we're very fortunate here in Northumberland in the fact that we do have a number of observatories. In this very remote part of England, we actually have 4 observatories. The biggest and the most important, arguably, is the Kielder Observatory, which was built in 2008. It's a striking building. It stands very proud overlooking the Kielder Reservoir. And when it was built back in 2008, they imagined that perhaps they would host, I don't know, half a dozen groups of people up there during the year. They're now running more than 600 events a year and attracting more than 20,000 people a year to this one site in a remote part of Northumberland, up a very long forest track to get to it. And people just love it. They just love that sense of a journey, a sense of adventure. The fact that it takes you nearly 2 hours. If you're driving out from Newcastle to drive up to Kielder Observatory, it's going to take you at least 1.5, nearly 2 hours. And you're driving in the nighttime. You're driving up small country lanes. You're driving up forest tracks to get to this site. And so even if the clouds are there and you don't see much, it's still something to sort of talk about in the office the next day or talk to your friends and family about as a worthwhile adventure. And that's the beauty of stargazing. It's taking you out of your comfort zone. You're going into places, as I say, late at night, into strange places, but it's something that sticks in the memory and it's something that stays with you. This is what it looks like during the daytime. And again, it doesn't look like what you might imagine a normal observatory to be. It doesn't have a domed roof, for example. It looks more like sort of gun turrets on a battleship that's been stranded up on the top of the hillside here. This is a very sort of clean image that was taken soon after it was built. It has now weathered and looks a little bit more sort of toned down from this very bright woodwork. But it is a striking building. And again, it has sort of changed the way we do things here. We've got 2 wonderful telescopes in this observatory. We're also very lucky, as I say, to have seen other observatories like Roy's observatory here at the Battlesteads Hotel. The Battlesteads Hotel is an award-winning green hotel. It is an exemplar of using sustainable energy and recycling, and it's won many green awards before it decided to have the idea of building its own observatory. It was recognizing that a lot of people, as they were traveling up to Kielder Observatory, were stopping off to have an evening meal, and they were benefiting from that. And they thought, well, why not build an observatory in our own backyard and keep them here a little longer? So, you have the beauty of this observatory is the fact that you can have a fantastic meal, and then you can go out with your pint, in a plastic glass, of course, and enjoy the night sky with the instruction from Roy and his team. Wonderful. And it's all close to hand, and then you can just literally turn around and come back and go to bed. But there are other observatories. This is the Stonehope Observatory that Roy mentioned. This is a small community-built observatory in a very remote village of Stonehope in Warwick Forest. And Liam built this himself. He's a volunteer with the Kielder Observatory, passionate about astronomy, and has decided to give up the day job and commit himself entirely to astronomy and engaging and teaching people about astronomy. So he's built his own observatory. He's running his own events program. He's using this wonderful pavilion as well for some real-time observations. And it's beginning to, not only is it a benefit to the immediate community who value this facility on their doorstep, but it's also now attracting people from outside. And then more recently, we've had the Twice Brewed Inn, who have now opened up their observatory, and they've also developed a sort of open air. Obviously, as a result of COVID, they've decided to create sort of little sort of mini viewing sites. So they bought a number of sort of 12-inch Dobsonian telescopes so that each family group can actually maintain or sustain their bubble, their COVID bubble, and be able to observe without interacting necessarily with other people, but having their own telescope to use. So again, sort of reflecting the changes that people have taken. But you don't necessarily have to go to an observatory. There are a number of other places that you can literally drive out to if you want to get away from the street lights and the light pollution of our towns and cities. And these are called dark sky discovery sites. And they were the result of a program called the Dark Sky Discovery Project, initiated by the Royal Observatory in Edinburgh. And they wanted to identify and map places around the UK which are relatively dark. They don't have to be the darkest places, they just have to be accessible during the nighttime, so that people can literally go out and actually take advantage of their location to view the night sky. Some of them are picnic sites, some of them are car parks, some of them are village hall car parks. This is Kirk Newton right up near Wooler. And as I say, these are places that literally anyone can go out to and sort of switch off the lights and just take out the binoculars to see the sky above. As I said, we've already talked about the Stonehoff Stargazing Pavilion. Again, you can see the inside. This was designed by architectural students of Newcastle University, working with the community and creating this wonderful facility for residents of that community to use. But it's also really important to have the basics in place. You know, this is a cold activity in the winter time, and you need to have a warm room on site or close by so that you can retreat to warm up after you've been looking through the telescope for half an hour. And so 2 new warm rooms have been built, one at Kielder campsite and one at a small little village called Rochester on the A68 as you drive up towards Carter Bar. And the Kielder campsite hosts star parties. And again, these are very, very popular. In many ways, these were the very first sort of tourism activities that took place around stargazing. Amateur astronomers back in the late 1990s would travel out from the urban overlit areas of Sunderland and Newcastle out to Kielder Forest and basically set up camp. And they would bring all their telescopes and all their equipment and just literally spend a few nights enjoying the night sky and taking wonderful star trail images like this one here, centered around Polaris, and just opening up the filter or opening up the shutter on their camera for a good few minutes there to capture the movement of the stars that seem to rotate around it. And as Roy has said, we've also developed and built a brand new landscape discovery center, which is now our main site for hosting stargazing events throughout the year. We also have exhibitions and also do daytime solar gazing activities as well, because after all, the sun is our nearest star. So about building capacity, one of the things we realized, it's all well and good having, you know, lots of wonderful sites to view the night sky, but actually there are only so many astronomers that know what they're talking about. And sometimes astronomers are really knowledgeable, but they perhaps haven't had much experience in actually delivering an event to an audience. So we ran a program called the Star Maker program, where we basically invited amateur astronomers, taught them techniques in interpretation and event delivery, and they then became confident and qualified event deliverers who are now available to any hotel or business that might want to run a stargazing event. We have a lot more now available who can be sort of recruited and you know, used in that way. We also wanted to sort of engage the tourism businesses. As I say, the tourism sector traditionally dealt with visitors that like to go walking and cycling. So, you know, how do they deal with stargazers? What are their needs? You know, are they different to other people that go outdoors? Well, obviously they go out at night. And so you have to be prepared to allow your guests to come in late at night. You know, it's no longer sort of 11 o'clock a.m. is the latest you can come back into the hotel. You have to be prepared to accept the fact that some of your stargazers may be out into the early hours of the evening. And so, you know, just again, simple instructions, simple tips for tourism businesses to be aware of the needs of stargazers. And to this day, we haven't really done any sort of market segmentation on who our stargazers are. We tend to call them either amateur astronomers, people who are, you know, keen to go stargazing. Someone like Valerie taking their telescopes from place to place, knowing that these are the best places to stargaze and getting that experience. Others just happen to be on holiday and have suddenly realized that they found themselves in a stargazing location and would like to have a go. Some are drawn here because obviously they've already booked into an event, maybe at the Kielder Observatory or the Battlestone Observatory. And, you know, they're just other people that, you know, would like to have a go, but not quite sure where to start. So this Star Tips for Profit program was really just giving some instruction to those tourism businesses so they could actually get a little bit more confidence. We also ran a dark sky friendly scheme where, some tourism providers and accommodation providers wanted to have something that would actually make them stand out a little bit in their marketing. And so if they could sort of run through a self-accreditation kind of checklist to say, yes, we've got dark sky friendly lighting outside our building. Yes, we have been on a star tips training exercise. And yes, we understand the needs of our visitors who want us to go stargazing. Then they would be awarded a dark sky friendly logo to add to their tourism marketing activity. And some put them on their website, some put them in their leaflets. We also expanded that scheme and called it the Stay and Gaze, which is very similar to the dark sky friendly scheme, but this is really for those businesses that organize packaged stargazing breaks. So again, some of our hotels have both these logos saying that yes, we are dark sky friendly, and yes, we also host stargazing events and activities as well. And so far, we have about 40, 45 businesses that have signed up. I'm just going to show you an example of a small business in the middle of the dark sky park. This is Lampot in Otterburn, a remote wild area of Reedsdale. Stunning views in every direction, enormous sky to look at. This is a working farm, and they decided to diversify by building these luxury pods that you can stay in, even with a barbecue hut in the middle, which I love. We gave them advice on the kind of outside lighting that would be appropriate so that people can obviously get around the site safely at night, but at the same time, enjoy the beauty of the night sky. And this is one of the photographs that's been taken by Liam. Remember that guy who built that observatory in Stonehope? Very handy guy indeed. And again, people are now coming out here. We've got small parties coming out here who are now realizing that this is something special and something that they want to participate in. And she is now seeing a lot more custom in the autumn and winter time. And one of the things that she wanted to do, she said, well, a lot of the people that are coming here don't have their own equipment. So we said, well, why don't you have your own stargazing kit that you could literally take out in a box? Now, this is the components of a stargazing kit. First of all, you want to sit comfortably. A normal chair on a patio is not going to be comfortable for very long. So why not invest in a couple of deck chairs or even a couple of mattresses? Blow-up mattresses would be fine, so that your guests can actually sit out in comfort and look up at the night sky. A wonderful astronomy book would be very good, but they may not want an astronomy book. They might be more comfortable with an app. And again, there are many, many apps that you can download for free that more or less turn your mobile into a mobile planetarium in your hands. They may not have bought the right kind of clothing to wear late at night. So having spare gloves and hats and scarves, obviously this was pre-COVID, so we may have to sort of consider the issues around obviously clothing that can be shared by people. But again, if they were washed each time, I'm sure that would be okay. But again, people don't always dress up properly to be out late at night. If you want to invest in a pair of binoculars, then we always advise getting a pair of 10 by 50 because that's a great introductory piece of equipment for visitors. Hot drinks and cold drinks, of course. If adults want to go out and sit in the deck chairs with a glass of wine, well, why not? And again, the ubiquitous red torch so that your nighttime vision isn't affected by white light. You can still see safely around the place and still see the stars above. So this stargazing kit, she now literally hands over to her guests in a box, and they're very grateful for it. So marketing our dark sky, as I said, Northumberland Tourism, right from the outset, realized that they had a new asset to market. And so the winter campaigns for the last few years have really centered around our dark skies, a land that's just as good with the lights off, has been a dominant sort of marketing theme for the last few years. And it's worked. People have responded to it very positively. And we've seen a significant influx of people traveling from far and wide to discover the dark skies of Northumberland. And we decided to do some research. We decided to do some economic impact assessment of the value of dark sky tourism, looking at all of the other factors that might attribute to the rise in value of tourism that we've seen over the last few years. And taking out all those factors, it came up with a staggering figure that the value of astrotourism to the visitor economy of this area around the Dark Sky Park is worth over 25 million a year. And that's really significant. You know, in total, the value of tourism to the whole Northumberland economy is about $1 billion. So to attribute 25 million specifically to dark sky tourism within a relatively short time, you know, we're talking 10, 12 years or so of stargazing activity is quite phenomenal. So that isn't the reason why we need to conserve our dark skies. But the reason we need to conserve our dark skies are all those reasons that Valerie so well described in her presentation. It's about that connectivity with something beyond our world, something that connects us to our sort of galactic neighborhood, as it were, something that, you know, our ancestors took for granted, because after all, that's all they had to see at night. And we have just lost that ability to see into the night sky and to see a truly night sky. And it's often quoted that 85% of the population have never seen a dark sky, a truly dark sky. And that's a real shame. And there are opportunities. Even the government now is beginning to realize in its new 25-year environment plan that actually one of its key objectives is for every school child to spend a night under the stars. Now, for a government policy paper to say that this is something that, you know, we would like to see is significant. So we want to keep them to that promise, and we will work with them in any way we can to raise the issue of light pollution, to strengthen whatever planning policies are required to ensure that our dark skies are conserved. But actually using the events and the activities that can be enjoyed through observatories and through other events, whether they're in a hotel or elsewhere, you know, to get that message over that we cannot take our dark skies for granted. They're very, very special quality. They're valued both by residents and visitors alike. And there's also an economic value attributed to ensuring that those dark skies are protected into the future as well. So our next steps and trends, well, again, continue doing what we have been, but, you know, one of the legacies of lockdown and COVID has been this reconnection with nature. People have been discovering nature in their backyard. They've been discovering the night sky in their backyard as well. There's been a lot of online interest. And, you know, the lovely thing about this Dark Sky Festival is that it is online. It has reached a lot more people than perhaps we would have expected out on a cold night on the hillside. As enjoyable as that would have been, you know, it would have only probably attracted, say, 20 or 30 people. And it's lovely talking to so many people tonight about what we have here. And we hope, as Roy said, that sometime in the future you'll come and visit us. But there is a growing dark skies movement. And, you know, books like Valerie's is helping that movement, is actually raising that consciousness, that public consciousness about our dark skies. And a new all-party parliamentary group for dark skies. At the heart of our government is our voice at the heart of government, encouraging them to take the right policy decisions to strengthen any protection of our dark skies at government level, and using the soft power of events to raise awareness of light pollution. But in terms of where things go, again, we've talked a lot about astronomy and stargazing, but there's a lot more about the heritage of the night and ancient cultures and the wildlife aspects, nocturnal wildlife watching. These are all other elements that a dark sky tourism sector can focus on in the future. Right, I'm going to show you a few lovely shots now. This is Linnup Spout. This is a waterfall up on the top of the Dreamish Valley, and it's absolutely stunning. Taken here by Paul Appleby. Very popular destination to walk to. This is a lovely shot of the Milky Way. Again, over the Cheviots, up in the north of the park, taken by Colin Cooper. You have to walk some way in to take this photograph. You have to walk up the College Valley from West Newton, right to the very top, around Mount Hooley, Bunk Barn, and then you can get a shot like this. This is the one that's now become our iconic image of Northumberland National Park at night. This is the Sycamore Gap, or Kevin Costner tree, as most people now refer to it, because this was obviously featured in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. And this is where, obviously, Kevin Costner and Morgan Freeman arrived soon after landing on British soil to fight off the Norman soldiers and save the boy up in that tree. And, you know, I can't tell you how many people still come to our visitor centre and ask for Kevin Costner's tree. And there it is. There's another lovely image there with some star trails taken over it with a little bit of uplighting. We try not to favour too much uplighting now, because as a dark sky park, we're not so keen on light painting features. We prefer the intrinsic darkness and let the starlight be the light. This is a lovely photo taken by Ian Glendoonan of Harbottle Castle. Again, I think this is probably a compound shot. I'm sure astrophotographers will be telling me that it is, and taken with many, many images superimposed over the top of each other.
Yeah, I'm not sure it is.
But it's not just stars. You can take some wonderful pictures of the moon. The moon is a wonderful thing to see, even though you may not see much else. You know, having a look through the telescope at the moon and seeing all the craters in detail is, again, a memory that most children will never forget. And there's a lovely expression I heard in the conference by the IDA just before Christmas called "smiles in the dark." It's that immediate response when a child looks at a telescope eyepiece for the very first time and suddenly gets blown away by seeing the moon looking like a sort of headlamp, and or seeing, you know, the rings around Saturn and Neptune. Absolutely stunning. These are the memories that stay for a lifetime, and these are the memories that we want to create here in Dark Sky Park. And this is a lovely compound shot with a meteor captured by Heather at Caulfield Picnic. And that's it. Thank you very much indeed. Happy to answer any questions. Sorry if that ran on a little bit longer than I.
It's okay. I don't think we have. I think we're fine. We said we were going to be here till 8:30, including Q&A. One of the things that's been happening, someone talked about having an event. Oh, you know, you're at a pub and you did an observatory, that we could do an event, Pints and Planets. And there was been about 20 minutes of different people coming up with various, you know, drink related outings. And apparently we're now all going to hire a ship and go to New Zealand with Valerie. I think I'm not quite sure what we're doing.
We'll bring the stargazing kit. We each need a stargazing kit
with wine. Stargazing kit with wine. I was just saying, a couple of people pointed out that they're superb images, but also more recently, quite a lot of people have taken even more detailed and more impressive pictures of Sycamore Gap. I mean, Mark McNeil's pictures are awesome. Dan Monk's picture he took just the other night when he was out on a walk.
I saw that.
Like 10,000 likes.
Yeah.
Our own Laura lives nearby, and she wandered up the other day and took a picture of it. It's just beautiful. I do love it. I was thinking that one of the Kielder astronomers who left he went to work to Lapland and the Maldives and Norway, and I think is in Sweden now, Matt Robinson, he went to work at a place. And if I can get this right, I'm really hoping I can share this actually, in the Maldives, where they have a telescope that rises out of the floor like some kind of strange James Bond kind of thing. Here we go. I think this is going to work. Can you see that?
Oh, very nice. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like $3,000 a night or something. It's ridiculous. It's the kind of place where I've seen a picture of Will Smith in this observatory taking a picture of the moon through his telescope with his mobile phone when he was here. And then I believe Gwyneth Paltrow spent Christmas or New Year here at one point. I mean, look at that. How about that for an observatory? It just rises out of the floor, and the skies are obviously crystal clear. And then, you know, you can have your dinner on the beach under the stars. So I think that's an absolute like dream. It's never going to happen. I don't play the lottery, so I'm not going to win the lottery. And I don't have any distant elderly relatives that are going to die and leave me lots of money. So this is definitely just a dream, but I'd love that.
I will say, Roy, it was, of course, like many other things, affected in 2020, but I was in negotiations with a UK firm that manages a Maldives property. They were looking at starting astrotourism retreats on their property, and they were talking to me about having me come out and do a couple to see if there was interest. It obviously died on the vine.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got a family now, so I'm well past that kind of thing. That's unless they're family trips, I think. So maybe that's the thing. But 2 years ago, we were in the south of France, in a rural area, and it's not a dark sky park or anything, but the skies were ridiculous. It was just so dark, and the lighting over there, they've got it. They do a really good job just on a day-to-day basis, just putting sensible lighting in. And I think that's the key thing. If you want to go somewhere that isn't too far away, that isn't too exotic, you've just got to go somewhere where they've just put a little bit of thought into dealing with the light pollution and putting something in place to help you have a fantastic experience, whatever that might be. Wine, I think, is always good though. How are we doing with the questions?
I saw one come in the last few minutes in the chat.
Go for it.
It's not for me, but I'll read it if you like.
But I can't see specifically which one you're talking about.
Okay,
is it the one about pressures and astrotourism?
Yep.
From Dodie8515, can you say something about how the local environment is or will be protected against the increased pressures arising from dark sky tourism? And I think that's one for you, Duncan, isn't it? Because that's something you've probably had to face in your role over the last 10 years. So
yes, I think, I suppose the fact that it is concentrated, most of the stargazing activities tended to concentrate at specific places like Kiel Observatory or Battlestead, and more recently at the Seoul National Landscape Discovery Centre. The impact has been still relatively minimal because the experience, although there's obviously people are driving out, they're normally driving out with sort of largest groups. There are very few individuals just coming out. So we haven't seen any need for additional resources like additional car parking or any of those kind of features. But it is an important issue. It's not one that we can be complacent about because, again, people coming out to events, they are normally managed. So when you get to Kiel Observatory, you normally are sort of driven up the track in one of their 4x4 vehicles to get to the remote site. And obviously they have their events sort of spaced out throughout the day as well. And I know they have also encountered problems sometimes when there's been extreme weather, where that's been a little bit more difficult. At the Sill, we haven't had too many problems. If we feel that the weather is too dangerous, then obviously we cancel the event. And I think many other venues do that as well. But it's one that, ideally we would love to have a sustainable form of transport to enable people to travel out, say, from Newcastle. One of the ideas I'd love to have is something called the space shuttle, where you literally have a minibus or a coach bus, and you can do packaged experiences from the centre of Newcastle in a coach and drive people out to places like the Sill or to Battlestead or to Kielder. And they have the whole experience. So, it might sort of stop on the way visiting a local restaurant or a hotel for something to eat. You then go up to the observatory or have a stargazing session afterwards, and then you're taken home afterwards. They're yet to develop. We haven't sort of explored that because I think the industry is still new. And I think as it grows, there will be those opportunities that maybe others might want to take up. It's all about courtesy, though. Again, I think
yes.
So encouraging people to go out late at night themselves. This isn't, just to create a lot of noise and create a lot of disturbance, because, if you're living in a very remote farm, there is a fear of crime. There are often spates of crime where literally, quite large pieces of farm equipment are stolen. So if they hear noises at night, then obviously that's going to worry them and concern them. And I think there's a duty for all of us just to take the ultimate care and just going out and being quiet and not disturbing local people late at night if you want to go stargazing. The other thing is you don't necessarily have to go to the deepest, most remote parts of the national park. You know, as much as we would love people to explore the national park, you really just need to get away from street lights. You just really need to find a place where you're not overlooked by street lighting or flood lighting. And on a clear night, then you'll have a wonderful view of the night sky. So again, I think it's being courteous, and also for those hosting the events, try and look at ways of making the transport to that destination a little bit more successful.
I love the fact that generally, though, as kind of stargazers and as advocates for the dark skies, we're already coming at it from a point of view of conservation and of environmental protection. So I think it feels to me like the question was really aimed towards whether or not, by having a massive influx of people into the region, is that detrimental to the environment, wear and tear on the mountainsides and the paths and rubbish and litter and so on. But I think that, I mean, obviously there's going to be something there, and like you said, Duncan, we are learning, but actually all of us, and Valerie included, and all of my colleagues and our colleagues in the IDA, we're all coming at it from the point of view, we care about our environment. Yes, we want you to look up, and we want you to go stargazing and do all of that stuff. But also we want you to do that in a thoughtful and considered way. But I must admit, Northumberland, the rural parts of Northumberland do struggle with the public transport. Someone was saying we need something similar to the Corbridge Curry train.
Well, absolutely.
The Corbridge Curry train, Valerie, it's a legend.
We do need something like that. And as I say, the other thing is that this activity is also supporting small micro businesses. Many of the businesses that are benefiting are small bed and breakfasts and self-catering providers, who struggle sometimes, or sometimes have to close down entirely during the winter. This is before COVID. At the best of times. So, if we can, you're bringing people out into the national park at the quieter times of the year and supporting local businesses like cafes and restaurants that will benefit from that secondary spend. If they're coming out to the observatory, that's their first spend. Their secondary spend is having something to eat that evening. And so again, you're benefiting the economy that way.
Yeah.
So it'd be great to have, nighttime bus services, but that's
Valerie, there's quite a few questions have dived in there. I mean, I know I can answer a few, but I'm not the guest speaker tonight. Is there any that you'd like to pick up on, one or two that really have struck a chord with you and you'd like to answer?
Yeah, I think there are two that I can probably jump in on. The first one comes from Sean Kinchley, asking about taking photos with a mobile, or is it a waste of time? And I would say that it's not a waste of time, but there are certainly better mobile devices than others. The kind of gold standard that I've seen in terms of the final product, the Google Pixel phones are just, I don't know what software, hardware combination they're using, but their photos are stunningly beautiful, pretty much straight out of the gate. I mean, obviously, one of the big things that we hear about astrotourism or astrophotography, is that post-production is an important step. But a point and shoot, anything that can point and shoot the night sky is going to be pretty impressive. And the Google Pixel is obviously great. But if you don't have that, the newest iPhones are pretty good. Older iPhones, like I have an iPhone 11, it's okay. I get a ton of noise. I don't know what the problem is. And then as Andy Washington pointed out, there are some apps that you can download too. So I don't personally have a guide to mobile astrophotography on my site to point to, but I know there are great resources on the internet.
Well, we've actually, in the course of this festival, we have touched upon mobile phone astrophotography. Today, there was an event which was meant to happen at 2:00 and we had a glitch, but it was delivered 20 minutes later, wonderfully and very, very professionally by Natasha Lund, who is one of the Kielder Observatory astronomers and photographers. And she talked in a reasonable amount of depth actually about photography in general and touched upon the mobile phones towards the end of that, because the project, the Escape Velocity project, is about doing just that, getting out with your phone. And I remember when I first started working at Kielder in 2013, I managed to get people to start putting their phones up to the eyepiece of the telescope to take pictures of the moon. So you're right, bang on right. And I actually think we were having a conversation about this the other day in our nightscape photography sessions and videos on Monday. And by the way, folks, viewers, all these videos are on the channel, so you can go and read them and you can go and re-watch them at your leisure. And a lot of people are now thinking that very cheap entry-level DSLRs are just not being bought anymore because of the quality of the mobile phone cameras. I mean, obviously the chips aren't as big and all of that kind of stuff, but why spend 200-300 quid on a entry-level DSLR when you can get something like a Huawei P30 Pro secondhand from CEX, or a Samsung, you know, what's this, S20 on your contract? And the cameras on them are incredible.
Yeah.
Star trailing apps and all sorts. So just give it a go. I would say give it a go. Yeah, there's a couple of questions about dark skies and people stringing lights up within the dark sky park, and how do they get away with it, and is there legislation and so on. And am I right, Duncan, at the minute there's no legislation or fines or consequences if people do that? It's more of a goodwill, being a good neighbor kind of thing, guidelines.
Yes. It's one that has, if you look at the guidance criteria for becoming a dark sky park or dark sky reserve, they now specifically ask the applicant, you know, what are you doing to make people aware that, you know, artificial light at night, especially if you're camping or touring, is something you've got to try and reduce or stop. And again, you know, we're limited in this country with the sort of planning laws. Again, we have planning laws that can sort of intercept and give advice about the right kind of outside lighting when someone wants to build or develop something within a dark sky park. But once that building's built, or if you're a resident or you have a business in the dark sky park and you want to put up additional outside lighting, there's very little you can do to stop it. And so that's why we tend to use the kind of soft power, you know, at sort of pre-application stage of the planning system, we give them the right advice. And to be honest, 99.9% of all developers literally see the light. They're not trying to sort of put up outside lighting maliciously. They're not wanting to overlight the area necessarily. It's just basically they're following what they feel is the best practice to illuminate an area. And that's particularly important if you are, say, you know, for example, if you have just been the victim of a farm theft where you've lost an expensive quad bike or a trailer, then, you know, the sort of the advice you're normally given is to literally put up a couple of floodlights to stop it from happening again. What we're trying to say is, well, actually, yes, we can understand the need for the floodlighting, but there are different types of floodlighting. If you angle it downwards, if you make it a warmer white light rather than this blue, rich, intense LED light that we know is damaging to nocturnal wildlife and to our own health as well, then that's better. And if you can make sure that it's fully shielded, so it's literally angled down, overlooking the yard where you're wanting that protection, rather than it being sort of angled outwards across the fields beyond. And these very, you know, intense blue-rich floodlights are so cheap to buy these days. So you can put one up. And again, there's something called the Jevons paradox, isn't there? Which is basically, if you make something more efficient, you don't actually use less of the resource, you actually use more of it. And what we've done with LEDs is that we've replaced 100-watt incandescent light bulb that perhaps was the standard bulb we put in an outside light.
Yeah.
And then we find that actually we can, you know, replace it with something like a 30-watt LED light, which in effect gives out 3 times the amount of light, but much more cheaply. It's you know, saves a third of energy, but it's putting out 3 times more light. So, you know, people are just saying, well, okay, I'm creating more light, I'm getting more bang for my buck, basically. I'll put up more lighting. They don't need to. You don't need to put up extra or additional lighting. And if you do, don't angle it out thinking that's going to make your building more secure. You know, you just angle it downwards and make sure that it's light in the places that you want illuminated without causing a glare or distraction beyond your boundary, as it were.
Yeah, Valerie?
Yeah, the other thing I would say is for us as consumers of the night sky and as tourists traveling, one of the most powerful incentives we can give is our dollar. So if you know of a location in an economy that's affected by, dark sky protection, and you know of a business that maybe isn't doing their goodwill part, this isn't to say like go out and harass them, but just don't spend your money there. If there's an option to stay somewhere that is being compliant, the dollar, or the pound in our case, speaks very loudly as an incentive for business. And I obviously don't mean, but I could think of a powerful way would be to say, if you aren't sure what the lighting solution is, can you go on and ask a question on Google and say, hey, how are your lights? I know you're in the dark sky park.
Yeah.
I want to go stargazing from your property. That'll raise awareness for the owners and the business people involved that this is a priority to their potential customers. And it does it in a very sort of like powerful but gentle way to incentivize the behavior we all want, without it necessarily needing legislation or, fines or anything like that. So that's another thing for all of us is, just put your pounds where you want them to go.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we all do anyway, isn't it, with every other business? So why not with businesses that look at light pollution as a priority? I think actually we've inadvertently answered Georgia D's question, which is, if I wanted to become a dark sky friendly hotel, can we adapt to the lighting that we already have? And obviously Duncan's talking about, if you've got any of those great big kind of D-shaped lights that can be angled down, or security lights that are on a hinge, angle them down, because actually the way the parabolic mirror and everything works inside is such that if the lens of the light is horizontal, you do get a nice downward big pool of the right type of light in the right place at the right time. And that's the important thing. You can add dimmers, Georgia, you can add dimmer switches into your lighting. And can I just suggest as well that all businesses, when it comes to 10, 11 o'clock at night, close your out and you're closing down, turn your lights off. Turn your lights off, please, because the only people that are seeing your lights are people like me and Valerie and Duncan when we're driving home after a night of stargazing. And we don't want to see them. We're like, there's, oh my God, Team Valley at 3 o'clock in the morning, Duncan, are coming home, and because I live in Gateshead. I can believe it. Well, we're working now. We're working with Gateshead Council to try and turn Gateshead into an urban night sky place. So it's going to be a challenge, but I'm really looking forward to it. But yeah, so Georgia, that's the first thing you can do. And I'll be honest with you, if you approach your local national park authority, they've probably got someone that can also help you in the tourism department who can help you with your lighting. We've got some free guidance. If you go onto the national park website, to the planning portal, we actually have a free download outside lighting guidance sheet that you can just download, and hopefully that will guide you. Yeah, good. So I think there's one more comment, and I'd like to come in on that by the Market Cross Guest House. But while I'm doing it, Valerie, do you want to put your thinking cap on and put a name out of the hat for your book? Okay. Oh, so sorry, Market Cross.
Apologies. I don't think I can see the whole chat for some reason until it ends. So I actually can't see anyone before 11:15 a.m. So okay. I will do it just afterward. I apologize. I will get that done, and I'll get in touch with someone today via the comments on the video to tag the winner.
Good, that's okay. I also have the entire email attendee list, and I'm fairly sure that it wouldn't be breaking GDPR data rules to pick one name out of that and send them an email saying you've won a book. So we can do that as well. But the Market Cross Guest House says we have a sky quality meter, an SQM meter, and an SQM, sorry, because the M stands for meter. So SQM meter is like saying PIN number. PIN is personal identification number, isn't it? So you have an SQM, and it's usually around 21 plus, and that's pretty much as good as you can get it. Now the meters go up to 23, 24, but you only get those kinds of readings when it's overcast and really dark on a moonless night, because on a crystal clear night with no moon and no light pollution, the stars produce light, and the SQM catches that light. And the darkest official kind of proper clear night sky reading you can get is 22 on those meters. So if you've got 21 point anything, you're doing absolutely stonkingly brilliant. What I would say, Market Cross Guest House, is make sure that is on a clear night and not a cloudy night as well. What marketing has been done to encourage cross-interest groups to engage, such as mountain bikers? Geordie, Campbell, I have no idea. Duncan might. And I suspect this is going to be the last question for the evening.
So this is for mountain. What to do to encourage?
What market? Yeah, to cross interest groups to engage. Is there anything? I mean,
well, actually,
specifically
again, depends on where you sit in regards to this. But there has been an increased interest in mountain biking at night, just because of the quality of LED lights that you can put on your mountain bike now can give you an enormous amount of light output. Now, this might be contradictory to the whole notion of a dark sky park, because if you've got 20 or 30 people following each other with a very intense, 1,000 lumen output headlamp or head torch on, you're not going to see much of the night sky. But as a nighttime activity, yes, I know, there's a growing interest. We don't see so much of it in the national park, but we do certainly know elsewhere that it is a growing activity. I think we are keen, and we did do one guided bike ride where, another idea is to maybe get people on electric bikes and take them out into a remote part of the national park, and then just get them to switch all their lights off and just do some stargazing on the go, as it were, and then obviously switch the lights back on when you want to move on to the next location. I think that's a nice activity, because you're out there, but the experience isn't just to sort of challenge yourself or challenge nature to get across an area of land most quickly by using the most powerful light. This is an activity that is actually enabling you to stop and stare and actually take time in the night sky and get your eyes adjusted. As I say, for adults, it takes us about 20 minutes or so to get our eyes adjusted to the night sky. For children, bless them, they are able to do it more or less immediately, and they can certainly see a lot.
Yes, our older eyes can't, and also we can't see colour in things as well. The first time I showed my wife, who's about 7 or 8 years younger than me, Orion through the telescope, she went, "Oh my God, it's pink and blue!" And I just looked at her with such envy, because I've occasionally seen turquoise and bluish colours in really high power telescopes, like the big one we have at the observatory, but this was in my little 5-inch refractor that I had in the back of her garden in Frosterley at the time. Frosterley obviously really quite good for dark skies. Yeah. Oh my God, it's pink. And I was like, you can't see pink. Yeah, I can see pink. And in fact, in the whole time the observatory's been open, I've seen fewer than 5 people say they could see pink in the Orion Nebula. So that's quite the achievement. Listen, folks, thank you so much. I think we are coming to an end. I'm sorry that we can't kind of tell you right here and now who's got that book, because Valerie needs to kind of look through the entire chat from the beginning to make it fair. But we will be emailing out the person who is the winner, and we'll be doing that in the next 24 to 48 hours. So definitely before the weekend. So just watch your emails there. Okay. Obviously, Valerie has written the definitive Lonely Planet guide for dark skies. You can buy it on from all good bookstores, and some of the bad ones too. So just have a look and see what you can get. And if you are a business out there who really wants to engage with dark sky tourism, you could do a lot worse than getting in touch with Duncan or looking on the website to see what you can do. Even if you're outside of Northumberland, get a look on our website. Thank you very much for joining us. We have events all of this week. So the next couple of nights, we've got for the Great Geordie Space Race. We've got From Gates to Galaxies, which is a story about the Newell telescope that was actually built just a mile away from where I live, and now lives in Athens. We've got our Aurora night with Dr. Martin Kitching on Friday, and I think a really key person who's going to be a top guest, Lord Martin Rees, on Saturday, the Astronomer Royal, and then we're going to be finishing off the festival on Sunday with a bit of an astronomer's fireside chat, where 5 or 6 or 7 of us are going to just talk to you about what we love about astronomy and share some of our pictures. So we hope you can join for those. Please like and subscribe on this channel, and obviously click the bell to get notifications as well. Thank you very much.